20 miles wide. That is all that separates the global energy market from absolute disruption. Iran did not deploy aircraft carriers. It did not need a traditional navy. It used speedboats, and for a moment it nearly succeeded, until something unexpected appeared over the water, something considered outdated, something many believed belonged in a museum. It arrived in the darkness, armed and searching. What followed altered the trajectory of the conflict. Welcome to War 2 Signal, where the world's most critical flashpoints are broken down with clarity, precision, and no distractions. Before we continue, if you lived through the Cold War, the Gulf War, or September 11th, then you understand something important. History does not send invitations before it changes direction. Subscribe now. Consider it the newspaper subscription you never cancel, except this one actually tells you what's happening. And tell us in the comments, where are you watching from today? Let's begin. There is a narrow corridor of water in the Middle East, measuring barely 20 miles across at its tightest point. 20 miles. That's less distance than many people commute to work each morning. But this is not just another stretch of ocean. This is the Strait of Hormuz. And whoever controls it controls the fuel supply that powers the modern world. Every single day, roughly 1/5 of the planet's oil flows through that passage. Saudi crude, Iraqi exports, Kuwaiti shipments, the UAE's tankers, trillions of dollars in energy infrastructure compressed into a single maritime bottleneck between the Persian Gulf and open ocean. For decades, the global assumption was simple: it would always remain open. In 2026, that assumption collapsed. The crisis did not begin with fleets exchanging missile fire across the horizon. It did not begin with dramatic naval engagements. It began quietly. Small, high-speed boats loaded with explosives slipped into the water under cover of darkness from concealed coastal launch points. By the time merchant crews understood what was happening, impact was unavoidable. Within weeks, more than 20 commercial vessels had been damaged or disabled. Traffic slowed, then it stopped. The world's most vital shipping lane began to resemble a war zone. The tools responsible were not destroyers or fighter wings, but speedboats, naval mines, and inexpensive one-way attack drones. 3 low-cost systems achieving what conventional force structures never could. To understand how events escalated to this point, one must look back to February 28, 2026. That night, the United States and Israel initiated Operation Epic Fury, described by analysts as the most extensive, coordinated Western military campaign in the region since 2003. Israel simultaneously launched its parallel offensive, Operation Roaring Lion. The strategic objective was clear. Iran's regional influence rested on 4 pillars. 1. Its ballistic missile arsenal. 2. Its nuclear infrastructure. 3. Its network of proxy militias. 4. Its ability to close the Strait of Hormuz. The first 3 pillars were struck immediately. Submarine-launched cruise missiles, B-2 stealth bombers delivering precision ordnance, dozens of synchronized strikes in a single night. Within a month, over 10,000 designated targets had been eliminated. Missile production facilities were neutralized. Hardened bunkers penetrated. Radar networks silenced. By early March, roughly 85% of Iran's integrated air defense grid was offline. Air superiority over southern Iran was declared within days. 3 pillars weakened, the 4th remained. The Strait of Hormuz was never meant to be defended conventionally. Iran understood it could not defeat the US Navy in open battle, so it prepared for something else entirely: asymmetric denial. Swarming tactics, floating mines, low-cost drones. By mid-campaign, US forces had destroyed more than 120 hostile maritime craft and dozens of mine-laying vessels. Yet commercial shipping remained paralyzed. Oil prices surged more than 40%. Markets trembled. Insurance rates skyrocketed. Washington had dismantled Iran's traditional capabilities, but the asymmetric grip on the strait persisted. That is when an unconventional decision was made. Something older was sent into the fight. Military planners often repeat a simple truth: The most effective weapon is not always the newest, it is the one designed for the chaos you are facing. In spring 2026, over the dark waters of the Strait of Hormuz, that principle took the form of the AH-64 Apache. Introduced during the Cold War, the Apache was originally engineered to destroy Soviet armored formations across European plains. No one designed it for maritime drone swarms in a 21st century energy crisis. But war rarely follows blueprints. Facing explosive speedboats and persistent drone launches, the Pentagon determined the Apache was not a temporary solution. It was precisely suited for the task. In a March 19th briefing, General Dan Kane confirmed Apache helicopters were actively patrolling Iran's southern coastline, targeting maritime threats and intercepting drones. The choice was intentional. The Apache carries the AGM-114 Hellfire missile, a precision-guided weapon built to destroy armored vehicles. Against a speedboat, it is overwhelming. Beneath its fuselage sits the M230 30mm chain gun, capable of firing over 600 rounds per minute. Against a Shahed drone, often costing tens of thousands of dollars, a brief burst is sufficient. Regional partners released footage showing Apaches engaging multiple incoming drones in rapid succession. The results were decisive, but firepower alone does not explain its effectiveness. The Apache operates low, extremely low, in the same altitude band as the threats it hunts. It does not observe from afar, it enters the environment directly. Its radar, thermal imaging, and targeting systems allow detection in darkness or poor weather. It functions not only as a strike platform, but as an airborne sensor node feeding data into the broader air campaign. Electronic warfare systems disrupt hostile communications and degrade targeting. And critically, the Apache can deploy kinetic, non-explosive rounds, conserving expensive munitions during sustained operations. In a conflict defined by relentless drone launches, logistical sustainability became as important as firepower. The Apache altered the equation. Iran's strategy relied on the assumption that small, cheap systems would be expensive to counter. The Apache made that assumption obsolete. But it was not alone. There is an aircraft so singular in purpose that engineers built the plane around the weapon itself. The A-10 Thunderbolt II, known universally as the Warthog. It was never intended to be elegant. It was not built for speed or stealth. It was designed to fly low, absorb damage, and destroy ground targets. In 2026, that mission found new relevance. At its heart sits the GAU-8 Avenger rotary cannon, a 30mm system firing nearly 4,000 rounds per minute, approximately 65 rounds every second. Its distinctive mechanical roar has long signaled relief to troops on the ground. Over the Strait of Hormuz, A-10s carried mixed combat loads, laser-guided rockets and AGM-65 Maverick missiles. These weapons targeted fast attack boats, coastal launch facilities, radar sites, and supply depots. If the Apache hunted threats already in the water, the A-10 destroyed their origins ashore. This layered approach systematically dismantled Iran's denial strategy. What made the A-10 uniquely suited to the environment was its ability to remain. Fast jets move too quickly for complex identification scenarios. In congested waters, where civilian and hostile vessels may share proximity, hesitation matters. The Warthog can loiter, it can observe. It gives its pilot time to confirm before firing. In this role, analysts described it as a stabilizing force in a chaotic battle space. Its survivability also mattered. While Iran's air defenses were degraded, mobile missile systems and shoulder-fired weapons remained threats. The A-10's titanium cockpit armor, the bathtub, and redundant systems allow it to endure damage that would down other aircraft. Losses did occur. On April 3rd, an A-10 was struck during a combat search and rescue mission, but its pilot ejected safely and was recovered. An F-15E was also lost the same day. One crew member remained missing. Air superiority does not eliminate risk. War remains unforgiving. But the A-10 demonstrated something policymakers debating retirement had overlooked. Some problems cannot be solved from altitude. Some require getting close. Then came the strategic shift. On March 13th, U.S. forces conducted one of the most powerful bombing raids in the region's recent history. The target, Kharg Island, the hub through which approximately 90% of Iran's oil exports pass. Military facilities were struck extensively: missile depots, mine storage sites, radar arrays, and airfield infrastructure. The oil terminals themselves were deliberately spared. That restraint was not accidental, it was leverage. Public statements from Washington made clear: reopen the strait and halt attacks, or the energy infrastructure would become the next target. Meanwhile, troop movements told a parallel story. Marine expeditionary units deployed from the Pacific. Additional forces departed from the U.S. West Coast. Elements of the 82nd Airborne began positioning toward the theater. These formations are not symbolic. They are designed for rapid entry operations, amphibious assaults, airfield seizures, and contested landings. Analysts began asking not whether ground action was possible, but whether it was already being planned. The pattern felt familiar to students of military history: air dominance first, battlefield shaping, then options expand. Kharg Island's defenses were largely neutralized. Its export terminals remained intact, vulnerable not to destruction but to seizure. Controlling it would deny Tehran the majority of its oil revenue without demolishing infrastructure. The implications were enormous. There is one final complication. Iran's senior leadership structure had been severely disrupted in the opening phase of the campaign. Negotiating authority was unclear. In past conflicts, decisive strikes eventually led to ceasefires. In 2026, the pathway to resolution appeared less certain. The Apaches continue their patrols, the Warthogs continue coastal strikes, marine units remain positioned, and Kharg Island's terminals stand untouched, either the final bargaining chip or the objective of an operation yet to be announced. The Strait of Hormuz is not fully secure, the conflict is not concluded, and the decisions being made now, in command centers, in briefing rooms, and aboard ships crossing the Arabian Sea, may shape the balance of power in the Middle East for decades to come.